Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Six Pack NFL Preview Podcast Series. I am your host, Travis Pastore. On the other line, we've got Noah Spurlock, our resident expert. Noah, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
Good. Excited to talk some football. We're still churning through the AFC West. Tonight's team is the Denver Broncos, so I'm excited to see. This team has some potential. Excited to see what your thoughts on it are. So we'll jump into the plugs, which we do every week. You can find me on Twitter at the Real Travioli. Noah, hit him with yours.
At Noah Spurlock NFL. That's Noah Spurlock
We do it every week. Hopefully at some point we won't need to, and you guys will just know where to find us. But until then, we'll keep letting you know. Also, go check us out. You can hit us up with questions or suggest topics or players you just want some more info on, and we'll be happy to incorporate it into the show. Also, go check out our backlog episodes. We're running through all the teams, so when it comes time for draft season, you are fully prepared. But enough about the past. On to today's team, the Denver Broncos. Bit of a disappointment from last year, but they've got some interesting pieces. Most notably, they've got both Joe Flacco and Drew Lock as their quarterbacks. Joe Flacco, not the greatest of season by his standards. 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only did play 9 games, but almost threw for 2,500 yards. And Drew Lock, obviously, rookie out of Missouri. Flacco looks like he's going to be the starter. So, Noah, are you taking a late flyer on Flacco? Are you just in love with Joe Flacco and hoping for a late period renaissance a la Peyton Manning? What are we doing here?
I am not taking Joe Flacco or Drew Lock, for that matter, on any of my fantasy teams. I don't think either of them are particularly good, and I think they will be getting benched for one another a lot of times. So if you're worrying about your fantasy team, you shouldn't be worrying about Joe Flacco or Drew Lock.
Well, that's true. Joe Flacco is no Peyton Manning, but I think maybe in the deepest of leagues, I might take a flyer on Drew Lock. I know he's no Lamar Jackson, but I think Joe Flacco's pretty washed. So at some point, they might hand the keys over to the kid, and you never know with these rookies at this point. The prep they go through in college and the elite quarterback camps, he might be able to step in and give you a couple of good weeks towards the end of the season. But yeah, I'm on board with you. Unless I'm in a crazy deep league, I don't think I'll be looking at the quarterback situation from Denver anytime soon. But, it's Joe Flacco. He might have a good few weeks in there, so keep an eye on him. Might come out firing. On to the running backs. Probably the most interesting part of the Broncos makeup. They've got last year's fantasy star Philip Lindsay. Ran for just over 1,000 yards with 9 touchdowns. Caught 35 passes, 241 receiving yards, and a touchdown through the air. Royce Freeman, also on the roster, 521 rush yards, 5 touchdowns, added 72 receiving yards. Not great. And Devontae Booker, 183 rush yards, 1 touchdown, 38 receptions, 275 yards. So they've got some guys you can play in the backfield. It's just a matter of who's getting the ball and who's getting the touches. Are you a fan of any of these guys? 1, and 2, are you jumping in on any of them?
I like Philip Lindsay. I think that he's much more talented than Freeman and Devontae Booker. He was a little bit of a late bloomer last year. He wasn't really getting a full workload in all the games. I think he only started about half of them. But in those games that he was playing in, he rushed for 5.4 yards per carry, which is really good. And I think he has another off season. He's coming off a broken hand, I believe, but that really shouldn't affect him too much. He basically had an entire off season to just get better and learn the playbook some more. So I think that he'll kind of push Royce Freeman and Devontae Booker to the side and really take a workhorse role. And Royce Freeman is going in the 8th round right now. I don't like that. I don't think you can trust him at all.
Royce Freeman definitely came into last year having probably the most hype out of any of the Broncos running backs. He had a pretty prolific career at Oregon. You don't think there's any residual, maybe a post-hype breakout for Freeman where they get, a running back by committee sort of thing going on? You think it's just Lindsey's job to take and run with?
Yeah, I don't really think they'll do running back by committee just because I do think Philip Lindsay is a really good running back.
Okay, well, so much for Royce Freeman. I don't think I don't think it would hurt to take him, end of the draft, because I do think sometimes running backs and just rookies in general struggle that first year, and having a full off season like with the team and like knowing how to prepare makes a big difference. But I do agree. Philip Lindsay looked like he was a pretty all around solid running back, so I don't see any reason for them to want to give Royce Freeman looks unless Lindsay struggles out of the gate. So Freeman might be more of a stash, like last pick sort of stash. And if Lindsay dominates in the first couple of weeks, and maybe just move on from Royce Freeman. You took a flyer, no harm, no foul. But yeah, all right, Philip Lindsay, the star of the Denver Broncos so far. On to the receivers. Again, some interesting guys. Not a huge amount of production, but they do have a couple names that might be worth remembering on draft day. We've got Cortland Sutton with 42 receptions, 704 yards, which was surprisingly high, in my opinion, and 4 touchdowns. Deshaun Hamilton, 30 catches, 243 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And, of course, the injured Emmanuel Sanders last year, 71 catches, 868 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He did, I believe, tear his Achilles or rupture his Achilles. He did have an Achilles injury, and he might not be ready for the start of the season, but had he been healthy, he'd be the number 1 guy. So there's a bit of a void there. Noah, are you trying to take advantage of that and grab into these other guys who may, like somebody has to catch the ball? Are either of these guys going to just, by sheer volume, become a solid fantasy contributor?
I think Cortland Sutton has the potential to surprise some people. He's going in the 10th round right now, and I think that he could kind of separate himself from the rest of the Broncos receivers and turn into maybe a nice flex option. I don't like Emmanuel Sanders this year. He's going in the back of the 10th round, and he is coming off of a torn Achilles, and that was a really bad injury. It's common knowledge that that's one of the toughest injuries to come back from. But early reports I remember seeing when he did tear his Achilles was that it might be career ending for him. So I think he's really going to struggle to come back. And Deshaun Hamilton, I don't think he would be bad as a late round flyer, but I don't necessarily see a scenario where he becomes fantasy relevant. But once again, if you can get him in the 13th or 14th round, that would probably be worth it.
Cortland Sutton, yeah. I mean, as I said in the when I introed the position, 704 yards is surprisingly high. I guess from just my not opinion of him, but I just hadn't heard of Cortland Sutton in the way that he'd be a star receiver, or at least a solid contributor. So I like Sutton as a pick. And yeah, Sanders, it's sad to hear about the Achilles injury, especially from a guy who made his living just on those quick in and outs, those option routes. Coming back from Achilles, he's not going to have the agility or the ability to cut and move the way he used to. So I don't think I'd take Sanders at all, personally. Just Achilles injuries are the worst. So I'm right on board with you, avoiding Sanders like pretty completely. Cool. Well, not a great receiving core, not like the days of Peyton Manning. So Joe Flacco might have a little harder time than Peyton did, but there might be some value to be had. On to tight end, and that their big pick from the first round of the NFL draft, Noah Fant. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but
I think it's Fant.
Noah Fant. All right, he is a rookie. He was their first round pick. Can we trust him? Is he someone you target? What are you doing with this rookie tight end? I guess I'm trying to say.
I don't know if you can necessarily trust him, but at the same time, I think He's going in the 14th round right now. And if you're taking somebody in the 14th round, you're really just, who cares how they do? And with that kind of mindset, I think Noah Fant has a really high upside because he is an excellent receiver, maybe even better than his Iowa teammate, TJ Hawkinson. And I think we had just talked about the Broncos receiving core, which is not necessarily that impressive. So I think Noah Fant's in an opportunity where he can really step up and get a lot of targets year one.
Yeah, Iowa definitely has been producing some pretty solid tight ends of late, I should say. He had 39 catches last year for the Iowa Hawkeyes with 519 yards, 7 touchdowns, so he finds the end zone pretty frequently, and they're going to need somebody to catch the ball. I think Fant might be a pretty good flyer. Like you said, 14th round, you're not investing a whole lot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if he hits, that could really change your season around. All right, well, that is the Denver Broncos. As always, Noah, who is your one player to take from Denver? Is it? I think it's a pretty obvious choice, but
oh man, that's tough. But I think I would go with Noah Fant just because I don't see a scenario where he can burn you like some of the other guys on this roster. But I think he possesses a great upside.
Okay, well, I was for sure thinking you'd say Philip Lindsay. So I guess it wasn't an obvious choice. Noah Fant, pretty interesting. Okay, cool. As we've profiled so far, tight end, not the strongest position, so taking a flyer on a guy who could really be a lotto ticket for you might be a solid strategy with these guys. All right, well, that is the Denver Broncos. Keep a lookout as we keep running through the AFC West. Check out our backlog. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us with questions. We'll be here all summer long previewing these teams for you. As always, I am Travis. That is Noah. We'll catch you guys soon.
See ya.